So during the month of 2024, I read a total of 100 books. That has been the most books that I've ever read in a year by far in my whole life. Out of all of those 100 books, these are my top 10. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin with the head honchos, let's make way for some honorable mentions. Alright, so these honorable mentions are in no particular order at all. My top 10 are though. Okay, but not the honorable mentions. So let's go ahead and just start with the very top, the very first honorable mention that I have, and that is The Best Way to Bury Your Husband by Alexis Castle. I really enjoy this book. I haven't really read too many books that are based off of COVID, but this one is, and in this one we are basically following our main character, and she has a pretty crappy husband who is horrible. He's an absolute POS, okay? Piece of... So what does she do? She snaps one day because it's COVID and she can't stand him anymore, and she decides to hit him with a skillet until he's no longer breathing. And so now she has a dilemma that she has to deal with. But it turns out she's not the only housewife that has just murdered their husband. There are a few other women, and now they have to figure out how to get away with murder. So this one is so fun. It literally reminds me of Why Women Kill. If you guys have watched that show, literally it fits it so much. It's a dark humor, very lighthearted, even when dealing with some dark topics like COVID, DA husbands, and also dealing with murder. So heavy topics, but very dark humor. Very, very dark humor. So if you're into dark humor, this book is phenomenal. I really love it. I don't understand why it's not as hyped as it should be, because I love this book. And nope, I have not seen one single person talk about this book. I think I just found it online. Yeah, when I was doing a new release video, this popped up and I was like, I need to get my hands on that. And it did not disappoint. This book was fantastic. The next honorable mention goes to The Paleontologist by Luc Damas. This one is a book that honestly, I read it in it was my first reading log in 2024, and it has not left my mind because it is so unique. The concept is so incredibly unique. It's so good. If I hadn't done the vlog that I did, I probably would have never picked this up, because I actually went to Barnes & Noble and did a blind pick. I literally just picked out books based off of the cover. I didn't read the back of them. I didn't look up Goodreads reviews. None of that. Literally, I picked blindly. I read it, and then I didn't find out the ratings or anything like that until after I had finished the book. So this one was rated pretty low on Goodreads, which I was shocked, and I would have not picked it up otherwise, because I swear by Goodreads reviews, which obviously goes to show I shouldn't entirely trust Goodreads reviews, because even another one of my books that's in my top 10 was rated not that great, but I effing loved it, obviously. And this one we are following our main character, and he is a paleontologist. He grew up going to the museum because his mom wouldn't really take care of him, and so one day he takes his little sister with him because, like I said, the mom was not a great mom and wouldn't really take care of her kids. And she's like, yeah, go to the museum. And he ends up going with his sister to the museum, and she ends up going missing, and they never find her. And now as an adult, he goes back and he's working at this museum, only to find out that this museum definitely has its secrets, because these fossils of dinosaurs actually come to life in the middle of the night. So think like Night at the Museum, but darker with a mystery to it. That's what you get with The Paleontologist. I really enjoyed this book. It was dark, but it was just so entertaining, and even though it was one of my first reads of 2024, I still find myself thinking about it quite often. The next book is another one from that same first reading vlog that I did in 2024, where I blindly pick my TBR based off the cover, and that is Among Among Thieves by M.J. Kun. In this one, we are following our main character. Her name is Araya, she is known as the Butcher of Kerouac. She is a female assassin, and she is fantastic at her job. She's great, and she runs around with these group of ragtag individuals that she does heists with, and then they are tasked with the ultimate heist, to steal something that is known to be unstealable. However, when you grab a whole bunch of thieves that like to lie to each other and you throw them at something like this, obviously there's going to be some deceiving, some betrayal, and it was just so good. This is literally a combination of like Pirates of the Caribbean mixed with Throne of Glass and mixed with Guardians of the Galaxy. If you like that dynamic of like the Guardians of the Galaxy characters where it's like just like silly, humorous, but also there's a lot of like action, adventure, that's what you get with this book. It's so good. I really, really loved it. I had such a great time. I still haven't picked up the second one. I think it's a duology because no other book has come out since then, but I definitely need to pick it up because this was great. The next honorable mention goes to Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. So in the year of 2024, I discovered a genre that I really enjoyed. Actually, I discovered it in 2023, but I didn't further explore it up until 2024, and that is sapphic cozy fantasy. I had like just sapphic like romance in general, but sapphic cozy fantasy was my vibe in 2024. And this one we are following a sapphic couple. We are following Reyna and we are following Kianth. And Reyna is the royal guard to the queen, and Kianth is like this huge like mage or something like that. She's a really famous mage. And they decide, they're like, you know what? We're tired of this. We're tired of our jobs. We're just going to just run off and open up a book and tea shop. And that's what they do. And it's very low stakes, so cozy, it's so like found family, community. It's just beautiful, and it's already a established couple, and you don't really often find books where there's already a couple that's already a couple. You usually see them get together, but this is a couple that's been together for a while, and you just see like their love, their pure love for each other, how they rely on each other, and it's just so cozy, and it feels like a warm hug, and I just loved this book so much. I love the cover. I love the sprayed edges. I really like this book, okay, you guys? And it's just fantastic. Like, if you guys like cozy fantasy, pick this up. Like, it was amazing. And last but certainly not least for my honorable mentions, we have The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. I loved this book so much. I really loved this book. In this one, we are following our main character. I think her name was Daphne. Delphi. Her name was Delphi. And the audiobook for this, you guys, is so hilarious. So we're following Delphi, and Delphi, in the very beginning, she dies. Yeah, that's literally how it starts. It starts with her death, and she dies by choking on a microwaved hamburger. Imagine that's like the way you go. That's horrible. Anyways, she dies. She wakes up in a little room that like a what's it called? Like a waiting room for the afterlife. And there she comes face to face with the love of her life, right? Her soulmate. And so her guidance, her counselor to the afterlife is like, you know what? Sure. If you can find this, I will send you back. I'll let you go back, but you got to find your true love, and you have 7 days to do it. And if you don't, then guess what? You're going to be right back down here. And so she is in a time crunch to find the love of her life, and he has no idea. He does not remember her, and so she has to make her fall in love with him. They have to kiss. They basically have to kiss in order for her to stay on planet Earth, or else she's gonna be dragged back to the afterlife. And it's just so fun and hilarious. It's like literally, if you guys like The Good Place, the show The Good Place, you guys would love The Love of My Afterlife. It just reminds me of that so much. Very lighthearted and just a fun like time when you want something that's like very surface level. You don't want anything too dark or depressing or deep, and you just want to have a good time. This is perfect. This is perfect. And like, I really want to reread this eventually because I really enjoyed this. It was just so unique. Time for the final countdown. The top 10 of my 24, sorry, I'm double jointed. I'm sorry if that grossed you out, guys. Favorite books of 2024. I'm so tired. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. It is way past my bedtime. My top 10 books of 2024, starting with number 10. These are all in order. These are in order. I know a lot of people on YouTube, they're like, yeah, my top 10. Yeah, but in no particular order. I'm a list girly, so mine's are in order. These are from number 10 to number 1, how much I enjoyed them. Starting with number 10, we have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Yeah! I love this book. I believe the other book by Ashley Poston went into my 2023 favorites, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I had The 7-Year Slip in my top 10 of 2023. If not, I really enjoyed that book. But I seem to enjoy everything that Ashley Poston writes. It's all magical realism. It seems like there's always some sort of paranormal or sci-fi element to her stories. Like, it's not just a romance. It's a romance with a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of paranormal. It's a little bit of one of my favorite tropes. And in this one, we are following our main character, whose name is Florence Day. And Florence Day has a gift. Ever since she was little, she's been able to speak to spirits, and her family owns a mortuary, and she has a little incident with these spirits, and she ends up leaving town because she's like, she doesn't want to be known as the freak, and she decides after that to never speak about talking to spirits again and leave that in the past until her father passes away and she has no choice to go back. At the same time, she is a ghostwriter. So she's a ghostwriter for a famous author, and she has a deadline to meet for this author. And so the publisher, the editor-in-chief, whoever her boss is like, no, you have to do this. If I don't get a script in by this deadline, like, you're out, you're cut, that's it. And so she has all this pressure, and she has all this pressure to like make this romance novel when she's so against romance right now because she just went through a breakup, all while having to deal with now the passing of her father and having to go back to the mortuary, setting everything up for the funeral. Now, when she gets to her hometown, who comes knocking? None other than her boss, and he's dead. He's dead. He's a ghost. The ghost is there, and he is not going anywhere. And she's like, no, I don't see you. I don't see you. But he just keeps coming back until she has no choice but to help this man. So it's so good. Like, this book reminds me of the Mediator series by Meg Cabot. I've mentioned that before, which was literally my favorite series as a teenager. So it gave me that nostalgia. And not only that, but the covers are very similar. I loved this book so much. The cover's fantastic. Everything about this book was great. There is topics of grief. There's topics of heartbreak. There's just so many like little commentary and things about different heavier topics while still maintaining a very lighthearted tone. I really enjoyed this book so much. The main character was so fun. The romance was beautiful. I loved it. It was fantastic. It was such a great book. Coming in at number 9, I'm not going to have a whole series on the list, so I decided to pick my favorite book from this series that I read, and that is going to be A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 3 in the ACOTAR series, And I know I am in the minority here. Usually when people talk about this series, their favorite book tends to be either A Court of Mist and Fury or A Court of Silver Flames, which is Nesta's story. No one really, like, I feel like A Court of Wings and Ruin does not get enough hype. And I don't understand why. Because this is when things really pop off. This is when the action is actioning. This is when Feyre, our main character, becomes a complete and total badass. And I loved this book. I ate this shiznit up. This book had me laughing, crying, throwing up. I was obsessed, okay? I read this freaking chonker in like 2 or 3 days because I was obsessed. I could not put it down. It was just so good. And as you can see by the tabs, I was obsessed. It was so good. If you guys don't know what this book is about, in this series, we are following our main character. Her name is Feyre, and she is a human girl who has a father that does nothing for his family. Her mother passed away. They used to live in luxury until they didn't because the father ended up not paying some debts. And so they were like on the brink of homelessness basically, and Feyre is like their savior because she's the one that's bringing in food. She's the one that's bringing in coin when she turns in the whatever she tries to trade for things, and she's literally the only one that's making the income in the house until she ends up killing the wrong creature. What she thinks is a wolf turns out to be a fae, and now who comes a knockin' but a beast, taking her to his castle because he's like, no, a life for a life. I have to keep you with me now. And he turns out to be a fae. And it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The second book is a Persephone and Hades retelling. I don't know what the heck this is, but it's really good. It's really good. It's such a good series. I still think Throne of Glass is better, to be honest. But the series was still so fun. And obviously, the war, there's a reason why it's called ACOTAR, is definitely my favorite book. So that's number 9 spot goes to A Court of Wings and Ruin. Coming in at number 8, we have Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is a dark romance. And when I tell you guys that this is a dark romance, this is a dark romance, okay? In this one, we are following a couple. They're not a couple. It's Cora and Dean. And Cora and Dean, they know each other because Dean is actually Cora's sister's fiance. And they end up getting kidnapped together and held in a basement where they are forced to do all kinds of things together. And basically what this serial unaliver does to his victims is that he ends up taking people that don't know each other or that know each other but aren't in love and forcing them to fall in love. And once they finally fall in love, he will unalive one in front of the other. It's just what he feeds on. And so that's what he decides to do to Cora and Dean. But they end up escaping. And then it's them dealing with the trauma of everything that has and the consequences and what this means now that they were forced to do these horrible things and they actually fell in love. What does that mean for the relationship between Dean and Cora's sister, or Cora and her sister? What's the bigger picture? It's so messy and dark, but beautiful at the same time. There's so many lines in here that I underlined and highlighted because I just thought it was so beautiful. This is another book that just literally had me crying. And if a book can make me cry and evoke those emotions in me, I know that I sincerely really enjoyed that book. This one landed spot number 8. Coming in at number 7 is a cozy horror, and that is The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates. This is book 1 in the Gravekeeper series. This one I see it being compared to the Ghost Whisperer series, like, not movie, show series. So if you guys enjoyed that show, You guys might enjoy this book. In this one, we are following our main character. Her name is Kira, and Kira has amnesia. She doesn't know how she woke up in the middle of the woods being hunted. She doesn't know who she is, but she just knows that she's being hunted. And apparently she can speak to the dead. And so she ends up running to a church, and the church, the priest gives her sanctuary and lets her stay in this like old abandoned cottage. And then there is a mystery element to it when she finds a gravestone, and the ghost from that grave comes to her and is like, hey, I need you to solve what happened to me and who unalived me. And so our main character tries to do that so that this spirit could be at rest. And it was just so good. Like, this series, literally, it was horror, and there were moments that were pretty creepy, but for the most part, it was very found family, very just beautiful and cozy. So another one that deals with dark topics, but has a lighter tone. I really liked it. I read it so fast because honestly, it's only like 200 or something pages, and the font is actually pretty big. So I was able to fly through this in like 2 days. So I had such a great time with this one. I really want to continue this series. There are 5 books out. I think that's the end of it. I think I have all of them now. So I really want to continue this series because it was just great. It was just great. Anything that Darcy Coates that writes that I've read so far has just been very enjoyable. So I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed this book a lot. Coming in at number 6 is the first book that I read in 2024, and that is The Three-Body Problem by Susan Liu. I still think about this book almost every single day. I cannot describe the synopsis to you because it is so complicated and complex. I haven't even watched the show, you guys, because I really want to read the whole trilogy before I decide to read the series, before I decide to watch the TV series. So I don't know how closely that follows it. But all I can tell you is that it has virtual reality. It has science, because it's a sci-fi book. It has aliens. It has conspiracies, government conspiracies. It's just so good, you guys. It's so fantastic. So if you are into one or all of those things, please check this book out. I cannot tell you too much, again, of what it's about, but just know that it starts off very confusing, but that's the point. That is the point. You want to be confused because while things are unraveling, the world, everything is unraveling for our main character, it's also unraveling to us as readers, so we're literally feeling and experiencing the same things that the main character is feeling in real time. Well, in real book time. So I just thought it was just a amazing story. The last line, I still think about the ending till this day, almost daily. It was just so good. So, Three-Body Problem. Fantastic read. Coming in at number 5, we have Zodiac Academy. This is book 2, Ruthless Fae. So I read both Zodiac Academy and book 2 in 2024. I enjoyed the second one a lot more than I enjoyed the first one. The first one was pretty bully romance. The second one, the story begins to unravel more. There is more spice in this one than there is in book 1, but that's not why I enjoyed it more. I just feel like the plot really opened up more. It was a lot more entertaining than the first one. It didn't rely so heavily on the romance and the bullying and all that stuff. It just had more to do with the plot and the action and the adventure behind it. So I really enjoyed this book a lot more. If you guys do not know, in this one we are following our 2 main characters, Tori and Darcy. They are twins, and they always thought that they were human until they find out that they are long-lost fae princesses that actually are pretty rich and have a whole inheritance. But the thing is, in order to get that inheritance, they have to go to Zodiac Academy and pass Zodiac Academy in order to gain the inheritance and gain the throne, even though they don't want the throne. And there are other people there. There are some boys there that have been in line for the throne. So when these long-lost princesses that they didn't even know were alive come back, and they were so prepared to take the throne, they take this as competition, and thus ensues the bullying and all this stuff. So it was really good. The story, like I said, really opened up in book 2. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to continue the series. The graphic audio for this is fantastic. I read the first book physically, but this second one, I listened to the graphic audio, and I prefer it this way. The story, I love the graphic audios to anything, because you literally slip into the world just so much more than even like physically sometimes. So this is fantastic. I really enjoyed this. Coming in at 3, we have a horror, and that is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This is the one that I was telling you about that didn't get the highest like ratings on Goodreads for some reason. I don't understand. I effing love this book. In this one, we're literally following the point of view of like a 8-year-old girl, and she's innocent. She's a little 8-year-old girl, but the thing is, she has something that lives in her closet, something that she calls Other Mommy, and this thing is absolutely terrifying, right? And it's just another monster that's inside her closet, except that she asks this main character one thing consistently, and that's if she can come into her heart. This book is so good, and it just gets darker and darker and darker and creepier and creepier and creepier as it goes on. I listened to the audio version of this. I know some people did not like the audio version. I love the audio version because since we're following the point of view of a 8-year-old girl, the narrator's voice sounded like a child, and it just added so much more like depth, and like it just added so much more to the story. Like, I felt fully engrossed in the story from this narrator's perspective. I thought she did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed this book so much. If you want something that's dark, that like you don't mind dark endings, you don't mind a dark story, and you want to read something creepy, definitely check this one out. It is very, very creepy, and it is very, very dark, but sometimes you just gotta be in the mood for that, right? I mean, I was. Coming in at number 3, oh my gosh, is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I love this book, you guys. In this book, we are following our main character. Her name is Rave, and Rave is pretty badass. If you want a badass, stabby female main character who can kick some ass, you're gonna find it with Rave. Rave is a badass. She's amazing, and she ends up basically being taken in by these enemies until she is rescued by this crowned prince or king, and thus ensues a story of fantasy and romance. Very, very slow burn romance. There's really not too much I can say about this book without revealing anything, so you kind of have to go into this one pretty blindly, but just know that there's dragons, there is the amnesia trope, so make sure that you enjoy the amnesia trope. There is stabby female main characters. There is a beautiful, amazing love interest who I really enjoyed. And it's just such a good book. Like, I literally cannot talk too much about this book without spoiling anything. So you just have to go into this blindly. Know that the world building does take about 150 pages for it to finally get, for the pacing to finally start to build. But once you get there, you get there. Actually, this has very similar pacing to Onyx Storm. So if you guys read Onyx Storm and you want something with a similar vibe, coming in at number 2, we have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. Honestly, you guys, this would have been my number 1 if not for the ending. The only thing that I hated about this book was the ending. I like my endings either open and ready for book 2 or ambiguous, but this one, I don't mind endings being wrapped up with a tiny little bow, as long as like it feels like a conclusion. And this story did not feel like a conclusion. That's the only thing that I didn't enjoy about this book, was the last like 5% of the book. But the rest of it was fantastic. In this one, we are following our main character, Ophelia. And Ophelia is a necromancer, which means that she can talk to the dead, do all these things with the dead, right? And she has her sister, Genevieve. I believe it's Genevieve. I think her sister's name is Genevieve. I hope I'm not getting confused with Caraval, but I'm pretty sure her sister's name is Genevieve, because this is very similar to Caraval from what I've heard. But basically, after their mother passes away, Genevieve ends up going to this haunted games that they have called Phantasma, where you basically go into this haunted house, and if you win, you get a prize from whatever you wish, whatever you want. Basically, you make a deal with a demon and he grants you whatever your heart desires. And so Genevieve ends up going, and Ophelia follows her to Phantasma. And in Phantasma, it's they say that the only thing that's more dangerous than these deadly games is falling in love. This book was so good. Literally, the main love interest, I have been seeing people are comparing him to Danny Phantom. So if you were a Danny Phantom girly, if you were in love with Danny Phantom, this is sexy, hot, grown up Danny Phantom. That I feel like that's literally what it is. The romance in this, amazing. It unlocked a new kink, which is like men on their knees and beg. Oh my god. The spice, everything. This book was just so good. The action, the deadly games, this is so good. Plus there's some OCD representation in here as well. So I felt like I really bonded with Ophelia in that sense, based off of something that happened to me in my past. If you guys read the book, you guys might see that she like has a voice that's in her head that tells her things to do, and like, so I related with her in that sense. And this is a morally gray female main character, and when I say she's morally gray, she's morally gray. Like, she does not, I like when the main female characters aren't too goody two-shoes. They don't mind getting their hands dirty, and Ophelia does not mind getting her hands dirty. I really loved the main female character in this book, and I loved the male character as well. I just loved everything about this book other than the last 5%. So that is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. Now we are at numero uno, number 1. And number 1, I'm shocked. I am shooketh by this book, but I loved this book so much. And that is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. People describe it as Get Out meets Parasite, and I can see that. And this one we are following two main characters. We're following Charlie and we are following Eve. Charlie and Eve are a couple, and they are renovating this house, and they decide to stay at one of the houses that they were renovating because they really enjoyed it. And one day, this man and his family come knocking when Charlie is out and Eve is home, and he's like, hey, you know, I used to live here, and I live far away now, and I wanted to show my family my childhood home. Do you mind if we just, come in and, I show them a tour of the house and how I grew up? And Eve, because she's a people pleaser, because she doesn't know how to say no to people, she's like, sure, 15 minutes, come inside, why not? Thus ensues a literally fast heartbeat, edge of your seat, nightmare that literally has you at the edge of your seat the whole entire time. This book was so, so good. I love, some people did not like the ending. They thought it was too ambiguous. I love ambiguous endings. I love, when give me open-ended endings, it was fantastic. The plot twist in this was fantastic. The elements I don't want to give too much away about what it entails, but the tropes in here are some of my favorite tropes ever. I love the tropes in this book. So this book was fantastic. It literally gave me everything that I needed, the ambiguous ending, the tropes that I needed in my life, plus it's horror, plus it's sapphic. Like, what's not to love in this book? This book, I was just obsessed, start to finish, could not put it down, was talking to everybody about it, including my fiance. It was just fantastic. I was obsessed. So that is coming in at number 1. We have We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. So that is it, you guys. Those are my top 10 favorite books of 2024. Let me know what your guys' top 3, top 1 are down in the comments. And if you guys got to the very end, put a little house emoji for We Used to Live Here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell to be notified when I post, and also hit that like button because it really helps out my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!